it's just filling across the YouTube, Chairman. I'll let you know when we're on, and we should be off.
Chairman.
Right, we're on now.
We are live. Thank you.
We're live, yeah.
Good evening, members. Good evening, members of the public who may be watching on YouTube. Welcome to this session of the Crime and Disorder Overview and Scrutiny Committee. This is a committee where we are the critical friends of the Dartford Community Safety Partnership, which includes statutory bodies such as the police and the council. We've got a lighter agenda than normal today, but before we move on to that, can I just start with the first item, please, which is any apologies for absence?
Good evening, Chairman. No apologies from councillors. One apology from Kent Police, Chief Inspector Junior Dan is unable to join us, but his colleague Inspector Sandra Rivet was with us, and I'm afraid that Tony still remains just back on duty, so he won't be joining us this evening, the Community Safety Manager, Tony Henley. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'm sure all members were used to seeing Tony at these meetings for the last few years. He hasn't been very well. He is definitely on the mend, and hopefully we'll see him at the next meeting. I'm sure all members will join me in sending well wishes. So thank you very much for that. Item 2 is any declarations of interest. Any members have any declaration of interest? Any of the items in the agenda today? No? Okay. Before we move on to confirmation of the minutes, I just want to welcome our guests this evening. Councillor Mrs. Anne Ellen, who is the Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Youth, Health and Wellbeing. Welcome as always to you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Richard Wells, who's the Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Dartford's representative on the Police and Crime panel. Welcome to you as well. We also have Inspector Sarah Rivet from the Police Community Safety Unit, and we have Clive Phillips from Trading Standards. So welcome to you, Clive. I think, is this your first session with us?
It is, yeah.
If it
Go
is,
easy.
I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Okay, item 3 is confirmation of the minutes held on the minutes of the meeting held on 29th of July. It's on pages 1 to 20. Has everybody had a chance? Any amendments, comments, or suggestions on those minutes? Or we agreed? Just have thumbs if you agreed, please. Thank you very much. Any urgent items, Mr. Hook? Any urgent items for the committee to consider today?
No urgent items, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
To consider any references from any other committees. There are currently no references from any other committees for members to consider. And on to the Chairman's update, item 6. So welcome to everybody. Welcome also, sorry, remiss welcoming our officers from Dartford Borough Council who are always here and service this committee very well. This is the second virtual meeting of the committee. We are still in very uncertain times, and I'm sure the whole committee wishes to send our best wishes to all members of the Community Safety Partnership and members of the public, hoping they're keeping safe and well. We were due to have a new police district commander join us, but he's had to cancel that at short notice. So he's ably deputised by Inspector Rivet, who has been with us for a little while now, and hopefully she'll be able to answer some questions. Just for any members of the public who are watching, the most substantive item on the agenda today, which is around the strategic assessment, that is an exempt item. What that means is it's not open to the public, and when we move to that part of the agenda at the end of the meeting, I will say, and the live YouTube stream will stop and we will go into closed session. All the reasons of that are in on the agenda pack if you're watching online. Okay, now on to item 7, Regulation 9 notice. Key decisions. due to be made. Does anybody have any comments on those? I'll take silence as absolutely none. Thank you very much. On to item 8. To note the dissolution of the Dartford and Greyshire Community Safety Partnership and the formation of the Dartford Community Safety Partnership. We do have a very short report on that. Is anybody going to talk to that, any of our officers, or is it just for noting?
I can speak to it if you wish, Chairman, but it is as set out in the pages before you. The joint partnership was dissolved last October, and Dartford is now going it alone with our own community safety partnership, which will give us the opportunity to focus purely on matters affecting Dartford. So, you know, on the one hand, it's a shame that the joint partnership is dissolved, but on the other, it's positive, I think, for us going forward.
I agree. Thank you very much. Any member on this item? Any questions? No, thank you very much. Then straight on to item 9, a presentation from Kent County Council Trading Standards, fraud in the times of COVID-19. So welcome to Clive. The floor is yours. I understand we haven't got any sort of visual aids or any presentation, so this is just a verbal update. Just to put some context into this, we discuss a work plan at the end of every meeting, and members felt that this is something they wanted to have a look at, to be reassured at what was going on around fraud during COVID-19. So that's the context, and I hope you've got some information for us. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, sorry about the lack of presentation. It's mainly due to the fact that we're just, since March, we're absolutely inundated with COVID-related work. Because, as you know, we enforce part of the national lockdown. We take on a lot of the resale premises that shouldn't be trading, that are trading. So we've been very busy. Well, I hope that you all signed up to our alert system. And to give you an idea of some of the frauds that are going out there, we've sent out, as an example, 144 Facebook alerts about the types of frauds that have been floating around Kent during the COVID period, which those alerts have been seen by 1.4 million people. So we're quite happy about that. But the more that the alerts get out there, the better. So if you don't receive the alerts, then please contact me and I can put you on the mailing list. But to give you an idea of some of those frauds that are being perpetrated, obviously doorstep crime is still a huge problem for Kent. We work with our partners in Kent Police to apprehend and bring to justice those people that perpetrate doorstep crime. There's been doorstep criminals going around there knocking on doors, offering to sanitize driveways, things like that. We've seen a rise in text messaging, the fake COVID fines that have been sent to people. As we're all working at home, we're all particularly vulnerable at this point. I'd say that we're all vulnerable. We've seen a rise in Microsoft scams, where people ring from different country and they purport to be from Microsoft, and they want to log onto your computer and help you remove the virus that's on your computer. And whilst they do that, they're just putting programs on your computer to skim your personal data. And most recently, we've put out a lot of alerts about this, is the vaccine scam. Normally, it's done by way of email, and you'd click the email. You've been told that it's time for your vaccine. But what they're doing is they're asking for financial information, and sometimes they're asking for payment, a £5 admin fee or something like that. Well, as we all know, the NHS don't charge for the vaccine, it's free. Nationally, we've been involved in a call blocking project where the National Trading Standards installed 1,000 call blockers across the country. And in April, they reviewed the level of scam calls coming into those call blockers, and it was about 10%. By October, that those scam calls had risen to 35%, so 250% increase. You know, the scammers always adapt to what's going on at the moment. So at the moment it's COVID, but even today we had a doorstep crime alert for the Dartford area, where doorstep criminals were going around knocking on vulnerable people's doors, saying that because of the snow, there's too much weight on the roof, and they're going to have to go and inspect the roof, and then before you know it, they're offering to give them a new roof for X 10,000 odd pounds. You know, so we set the way we see it is education is the best cure. So we put out an awful lot of alerts We produced a Dorset crime video, which I hope you've all seen, which we invested in with the police. National Trading Standards invested in it, and that's available on our website, which we try and go out and do education to vulnerable people in the community. So if you've got anyone in your areas particularly vulnerable, you want us to come and do a talk to people, we can do that. We have a victim safeguarding officer. This year alone, she's done 160 engagements on her own and saved people from losing a further £240,000. Unfortunately, they'd already lost £620,000. So, you know, it's mainly doorstep crime that we have the biggest concern about, really. But that's just a flavour of what we've been doing. Like I say, at the moment, we're inundated with COVID work. I'm happy to listen to any questions or concerns that you have about what we're doing, or any ideas of us working closer with Dartford in any particular area.
Thank you, Clive. I'm going to open it up to members. Any questions, members? Is that Councillor Allen?
Oh, sorry, yes. I personally receive quite a lot of telephone scams. It's really annoying. I'll get 3 or 4 a day, and as fast as I block them on my call blocker, and it's saying it's Amazon, or as you say, things like that. And plus I'm in a particular age group, I'm wondering if I've been targeting, but as fast as I delete the number on, you know, on my call protect, they get another one coming up. And this is something we can do about. I mean, I'm just wondering if there ought to be some legislation out about, you know, and prosecuting these people for just this persistent telephone nuisances. I can get 3 or 4 a day, and it's you know, it's pretty annoying, really. I mean, I'm pretty astute, and I hang up. I don't press anything when it says press 1 or press something like that. I just hang up. But it's, as I say, it's just a nuisance as well as anything else. When you're stopping what you're doing, go and answer the phone, and it says, "Hi, your account," and I don't have an Amazon account. I don't buy online, and just wondered, how do they do this? Do they just generate by computer your number, or your home number, or what?
Well,
bit of a garbled question, but sorry.
No, that's fine. It's a common issue with people that once the scammers have your telephone number, often your telephone number is also then sold as part of a bigger package. So I would say that you should always be on your guard. Once you start getting scam calls, you're likely to receive more. So I'm not going to say there's a good outcome for you. But what I would say is that there are different types of call blockers you can invest in. I'm not sure which one you use. There's one that's developed and supplied by Truecaller, which is a very good one at filtering these scam calls. And because it works nationally, they if someone up north gets the call, then they block it down south, if you see what I mean. There are different types of call blockers you can invest in. Unfortunately, you mentioned legislation. There is legislation in the UK for nuisance callers, but unfortunately, a lot of these calls come from outside the UK. Now, if the number's withheld, it's easy to block, isn't it? Because you can block for your provider withheld numbers, but sometimes the doctors call from a withheld number. So that's why a Truecaller device sometimes is better, because there's ways for the doctor surgery to get through on a Truecaller device. But unfortunately, it's just being wary of who's calling, and as you say, you're pretty savvy, but sometimes a lot of victims aren't, and they get suckered in, unfortunately. So we just have to be on the guard.
See, I do have what I call BT Call Protect, and I rang them because it was kept telling me to remove this number now, because I have to dial in and remove the number and put it on the list, and then I have to remove my leased ones. And I spoke to BT about it, and they said that I'd actually had over 2,000 calls.
Yeah.
You know, you just think, wow, you know. But they said as fast as I delete it, they just generate another number apparently on these phones, and they are from abroad. And sadly, as well, some of them you can suss out because they have certain accents, and you think, oh, what's that? But again, you know, someone is exploiting other people at the end there, aren't they? Because they're probably being paid to do it.
Absolutely.
And,
I mean,
you know, I just think the whole system's a bit immoral, but you know. Yeah.
As I said, from April to October, we saw a 250% increase nationally in scam calls to people working at home. So I totally understand your predicament.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Allen. I've got Councillor Garden, then Councillor Moat, then Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's just a simple question to Clive. Would he be good enough to email me his details and the website so that I can connect that into join us with Facebook, please.
Absolutely. If I ask David Hook, can you email around my details to all the councillors?
You took the words out of my mouth, Clive. I'm happy to do that.
If I send you, David, all the links and the ways
Yeah.
that people can sign up to the alerts and the video that I mentioned, that'd be great. I'll do that tomorrow.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. That let us move it locally. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moe.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Clive. I'm just interested, are you part of the team that send out the Twitter alerts that go out a lot? Because there's the police force, the Kent Police, are putting out a lot of Twitter information or tweeting a lot of information and warnings about different frauds, etc., that are going out there. It's just that they're very, very good, and I think it's. I know I'm a bit of a scratch record, but it's a tremendous opportunity for us as councillors to actually take that the content and then Facebook it out to a wider audience. But I didn't know if that was your part of the world or that was another part of the Kent Constabulary Group.
I work for Kent County Council, and we.
Oh, beg your pardon.
But it's still a valid question, because we also have our Twitter account and Facebook. We put out a lot of warning messages, and we also have an email subscriber list that we send out typed warnings to residents of Kent, and often when councillors pick up on these, they then push them out in their local communities through their various contact lists. So I will send those details as well, but we try and work with Kent Police to get the communications on par with each other, but we're both agencies put out warnings.
Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
That's all right.
Thank you, Councillor Sandy.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for that update, Clive. Very good, and I'm glad your info will be coming out, because I haven't seen too much. I've seen some of the alerts coming out, but not all, well, not quite a few. And I'm sure I've raised it in this meeting in the past. I unfortunately get a lot of HMRC calls, and they're always fraud. I remember I was going, when we were a part of Europe, or the EEC, sorry, and I was going to Europe to go and get some stuff, and I actually received a phone call on the way that I owed £3,000. If I didn't pay it now, they were going to revoke my passport, my driving licence, cancel it, so I couldn't do anything. How the hell they found out I was going to France, only God knows. And you know, and these are the kind of things I think that we've got to be really ahead of, because unfortunately I found that the number was exactly the same as the HMRC number. And how the hell they intercept their calls, only God knows. They've obviously got a far, far more advanced and genius system than HMRC has. And I think these are the things that we need to be pushing out to say that, you know, we have to be careful, especially as Councillor Anne Allen has mentioned. You know, there's a certain age group brackets that, you know, are very, very vulnerable. And I think, you know, I am afraid, I know a lot of people have been stung in the past, and I dread to think what's going to happen in the future with this technology increasing. So, you know, if obviously something can be done, you know, I do realise you're saying that there is legislation in place, but there must be more stringent that we can do physically something to prosecute them. It's just a point. So, you know, I don't know whether you can clarify any of it or anything.
Well, just say if we do catch up with fraudsters, we do prosecute them. But obviously, if these scams are being perpetrated by people outside the UK, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So we do, as well as trying to apprehend criminals, we share intelligence with other agencies internationally as well. But we also, that's why we put a lot of effort into education. As you said, if you know about the types of scams that are out there, you can avoid them. So, I mean, with regards to the one that you just mentioned, obviously, the first best bit of advice we give to people is most of these agencies don't ask for financial information. They've already got your financial information. They wouldn't need to ask for it again. What we're trying to get better at is horizon scanning. We're trying to think about the types of scams that could possibly be perpetrated, and then try and put education out very early on so that people know what the processes are. So with regard to the vaccine, we did foresee that there would be some vaccine scams out there. So we tried to get our education out early about what the process is. I think as COVID slows down, then we think the next thing will be Brexit-related scams, particularly as now where people are buying from abroad. Obviously, there's a different process and different payment methods. So we're trying to get education together and to send out about that. So horizon scanning, education, working with our partners. But the most important thing is education.
Great, thank you. Any other member on this item? No. Thank you, Clive. You're more than welcome to stay, but I'm sure you've got lots of other work to do, and the meeting will go on. So thank you very much for coming. And I suppose really just to echo what Councillor Motor had said about using members, local members right across the county. We've got lots of resources, lots of connections, be that through Facebook, be that through all the different groups that we're involved in, to get these messages out around scams. Not everybody's using Facebook, as Councillor Allen will say, but her involvement with particularly these vulnerable communities is significant, and she if we can know about what we can do as local members, then please please come back to us. We're more than willing to help.
I'll send that education to David, and let's build the community connections up. That's the best way to go forward. But if you want me to come back to any future meetings, just let me know.
Oh, be careful what you wish for. No worries. Thank you very much. Thank you. Members, thank you very much. We're now on to item 10, which is an update from Councillor Wells, Kent and Medway Police and Crime Panel update. It's on pages 27 to 34. Councillor Wells, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Since we last met, I've attended 2 meetings of the Kent Police and Crime Panel. The minutes for the September meeting are in the pack, and I'm sure you've all read them, so I won't go over them. But the February meeting was last week, and that in many ways was the most important meeting of that panel of the year, because that is where the Commissioner's Community Safety Plan is agreed, and it's also where the budget is agreed, specifically the council tax proposal. So first, in terms of the Community Safety Plan, the Commissioner did not propose any significant changes to the plan and simply actually extended it for the coming year. So it was first originally set in 2017 and due to run till 2021, and it's just merely been extended now till 2022. The reasons for this, there's several reasons for this. Firstly, there's election coming up, so extending the existing plan like this will mean that the next Commissioner, whether that's Matthew or someone else, will then have time to produce the new plan if necessary. Secondly, the powers of the Police Commissioner generally across the country are being reviewed by government, so it may be that they take on more powers, and so I believe the findings of this are imminent, so it makes sense therefore to wait until that is reported so that any priorities can reflect that role. The third reason was, given the current situation, national government priorities in terms of policing can often override local priorities to a degree. So, and this may continue for some time. So it makes sense again to keep the existing priorities in place. And finally, then more importantly, I'd imagine, is the Commissioner felt the priorities were still very valid and felt that they reflected the public's priorities. And he pointed to his annual survey as evidence for this, and the annual survey supported the priorities. So just for information, the priorities in the newly extended Commissioner's Kent Community Safety Plan are to put victim first, to fight crime and antisocial behaviour, to tackle abuse, exploitation and violence, to combat organised crime and gangs, to provide visible neighbourhood policing and effective roads policing, and to deliver an efficient and accessible service. So they remain the main priorities of the Kent Community Safety Plan. And again, as I said, after the election, I'm sure whoever will be elected in May will look at refreshing them if required. The other big part of the meeting, as I said, was to consider the budget and specifically the council tax proposal for 21-22. The Commissioner proposed to increase council tax by £15 a year for a Band D property. For context, this still puts Kent Police amongst the lowest cost forces in the country and is in line with the kind of increases that other forces are proposing, but it's still higher than the increases that we've seen from the Commissioner in recent years. The reasons given by the Commissioner for this were that Kent Police is set to increase its officer numbers by a further 145 over the next year, and that will bring the number of officers in Kent to the highest in its history, which is 3,970 officers. As we know, that increase is covered directly by central government, as we can remember from the pledge at the last election. So the council tax does not directly cover that as such. It does, however, cover the cost of staff, the staff costs of existing officers, and which went up in the past year for a couple of reasons. It also covers improved technology and mobile policing. It pays for some costs associated with increased coronavirus costs, which may come back in due course. And if they do come back in due course, then the Commissioner said that any extra funding that will go again directly into even yet more officers. It also pays for the costs associated with a couple of new or expanded police units, one of which was the schools unit, which would see officers working directly in and with schools, and an expanded vulnerability investigation unit, which deals with tackling domestic abuse and sexual violence, and an expanded county lines and organised crime unit, which obviously looks to drive those organised gangs out of Kent. It was quite a robustly debated item, I have to say, but it was approved in the end. Those who know me will know that I don't generally like tax rises, but ultimately we do have an outstanding rated police force in Kent. We are going to be looking in a year's time to have the most officers that the Kent Police has ever had in its history. And I don't believe from my years on that panel and involved on this committee, I don't believe the Kent Police I don't believe they have a record of wasting money. I think they use money wisely. And I believe if they say that they need the money from this, then I'm personally prepared to trust them on that. I think that they tend to put across good reasons for that. But so that's all from me. But as ever, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Wells, thank you very much. Members, any questions? Councillor Green, you were first.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer these really, Richard. They're just points I'd sort of like to raise really. On page 30 of our report and 4 of ours in the previous minutes, oh sorry, I'll go back. On page 28 there is reference to some really good work going on with young people focusing on violence reduction. And I'm guessing that's all had to come to an end because of the pandemic. It's 0.5, if that helps.
Yes.
I just wondered if we've got any kind of idea. I think it's going to be a long while before youth work can be up to the sort of levels that it was prior to the pandemic, and I just really wondered if you had any idea if that work had been able to carry on in any kind of shape or form.
Off the top of my head, I'm afraid I don't know. I can certainly check.
Yeah, that would be lovely if you could. And then the other thing I wanted to say is on our report on page 30, the second point down, it says the Commissioner highlighted an example of positive feedback from a user of a children's domestic abuse counselling service, which had been commissioned with the extraordinary Ministry of Justice funding. I really wanted to just highlight that sounds absolutely fantastic, and I hope that's something that can continue. I think that could really change a lot of lives. So I just wanted to highlight how good that is and the hope that we can get a bit more information about that, because it really will make a big difference.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Green, thank you for that. And maybe on the first question, we've got Inspector Rivet here from Kent Police. She might be able to answer that if she knows. I'm keen that members get answers to the questions that they can. Sarah, on the issue of the VRU and the activity they were doing, has that stopped completely, or is there other things going on?
No, they have still been doing some work. Obviously, it's limited. We have to obviously be mindful of COVID compliance, but from the updates I've been having, they've still been getting out there as much as they possibly can. They're still engaging with sort of our young people, and their funding has been increased for the next financial year as well. So they're in it for the long haul. So I'm optimistic that that will continue, and hopefully when we get COVID under some kind of control, we can sort of really push that forward.
Marvellous, thank you. Councillor Gaskin, you're next.
Hello, yes, thank you. My query is with regard to item before, or actually it's 355, regarding officer recruitment. So yes, I noticed the Commissioner confirmed the officer recruitment will meet the Home Office request and even ahead of its deadline. And it's also highlighted the ratio of officers joining Kent Police from BAME background has increased, as well as the number of women. So my question is, I don't know again whether you could sort of answer it, because it's regarding to actual numbers and percentages. Specifically, what is the current percentage of the BAME officers and women officers recruited, and what is the aim? What is the actual goal to achieve in a way of percentages, and whether this would reflect the sort of like societal percentage within the area?
Again, that's something I think I can probably find that out, actually, if you don't mind. But I can't find that right now, so I can certainly check that if that's all right. Yeah. Unless anyone else does know.
Absolutely, because I mean it is totally and absolutely commendable aim, and it is desirable. Actually, I wouldn't say it's more than desirable. It is necessary that now the percentages will be reflecting the community as such. So, are there any specific sort of activities that the Kent Police is actually proposing to raise the profile and
I think on the next page, Councillor, there had been mentioned, the Commissioner affirmed that recent successful engagement come from the involvement of the Positive Action Team in collaboration with recruitment officers. So I think you're absolutely right. The Kent Police needs to reflect the diversity of Kent at 100%. And I think Kent Police certainly do seem to be making the right strides, but it would be really handy to know, as you've said, Councillor Gaskin, what that kind of looks like now and how well they're doing on that. If that's something that perhaps Councillor Wells could bring back to us online.
I'll find out and I'll send you an email if that's all right.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Just one more question, and it is on the next page, the use of CCTV cameras, which we know it can be very helpful. And however, I noticed that the Commissioner stated the Kent Police did not have sufficient systems in place to make the best use of CCTV and third-party video evidence. So is there something they are planning to, to improve on? What would they need in a way of help and support?
That might be something Sarah might know again, I'm not sure.
I was just about to say the same. Inspector Rivet? I think that probably just relates to how police are using CCTV and checking it and making best use of what might be available. Is that right?
Yeah, well, look at they stated they don't have enough systems, they don't have sufficient systems in place to make the best use of CCTV.
I see, yeah, I see it now. Inspector Rivet.
I think that's obviously technology is fast moving, and I think a lot of it is down. We've got our mobile phones which now have links to CCTV, local authority cameras. It's very much a work in progress, so I wouldn't be able to give you any more detail than that, I'm afraid. I haven't got a clue, if I'm brutally honest. So I'd have to look into that.
No problem. We've got Mark Salisbury, who's our Head of Enforcement and Community Safety at Dartford Borough Council, just if anybody doesn't know him. Mark, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. I can possibly help here in that the PCC uniquely actually funds a CCTV operator post as part of his funding agenda throughout the county at Dartford. I think we were very creative in asking for his support to sustain what is a very expensive resource for the community. So one of our operators in the Civic Centre is in fact a funded post from the PCC, and we hope, it's not been confirmed yet, but we hope that's going to ensue also into the new fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
That's really good, thank you. Any other member on this point? My only question, I think it's probably for Inspector Rivet again, is I appreciate county-wide there's recruitment of police officers. As chair of this committee, I'm only really interested in Dartford. Sorry, rest of Kent. But how many of those have translated to more officers on the streets in Dartford, do you know, from your perspective?
I mean, I couldn't give you an exact figure, but what I can say is that we are certainly starting to see an increase in the officers that we have on a daily basis, you know, our uniformed officers. It's allowing us to sort of set up these bespoke teams to tackle specific issues that we've got. From my point of view, I'm able to sort of gain some staff for my community policing team. It allows us to be more proactive, more targeted in our activities. So we are starting to reap the rewards with the recruitment process. It's not quick, you know, from start of application through to training. So you have to allow a few months, but we're starting to see over the last sort of 12 months of rigorous recruiting, we're starting to see those numbers come through, and it's starting to pay dividends for us.
I'd hoped you had said that actually. You know, being the local inspector for the community safety unit, you're always trying to grab resources to get stuff done. So if it's getting easier to get resources, then that must be translating into more officers and more boots on the ground. And that's excellent to hear. Thank you very much. Any other member on this before I close it and move on to the next item? Good, thank you very much, Councillor Wells, as always. Thank you for your representation on that. And always championing the needs for Dartford. We really appreciate it. Okay, on to item 11, which is a review of the work plan for the year 2021 to 2022. Can I just say before we, for any members beforehand, we were meant to have an item on environmental health, if you remember at the last meeting in July. I had suggested, with everything going on in the pandemic and what they're managing the COVID response, I'd suggested that it be deferred until the next meeting on your behalf. I hope that's okay. Too late now, it's done, but we will definitely get something. And they're also going through some restructure in environmental health at the moment as well, with the dissolution of the partnership with Sevenoaks. So there's lots going on there and just trying to relieve the burden on them. I hope that's okay, but we will have something for the next meeting, which is in the summer. That's what I'm going to say. Thank you very much. Okay, any points on the work plan, colleagues? Anything anybody wants to see? No? Good, thank you very much indeed. Just to say also, whilst we have a work plan, I think that Mr. Hook will correct me, members can draw things down, providing a sufficient time is given. If something happens and there is sufficient time, if you liaise directly with Mr. Hook and myself or the Vice Chairman, and things can be drawn down and we can give the appropriate agency sufficient time. Is that correct?
Sorry, Chairman, I was on mute. Yes, that's correct. We don't normally send out a reminder. We do for scrutiny, but I'm happy to institute that. Any drawdowns would be 16 days before the date of the next meeting. But I can put that into the system, and the reminder would go to yourself as Chairman, the senior Labour member and the senior member for Swanscombe and Green Hive represented on the committee. I can do that if you so wish.
If it's not too much trouble, it might be helpful. I think, is it Councillor Graham for the Labour group and Councillor Harman for the Independents? I think that would be helpful. That'd be, if it's not too much hassle, yes, please, that would be great. Thank you very much.
No, it's not hassle at all. It's never really been considered in the past because it's a quasi-judicial committee. It has to meet twice a year. It has to consider the strategic assessment and the 3-year plan. So it kind of takes care of itself. And then mainly under Mrs. Green's guidance, we have over the years since the committee was created in 2009, we look at each partner in the CSB and how they contribute, and we sort of roll through those partners twice a year. But I can certainly send out a drawdown reminder. Yes, Chairman.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Any other member? No, thank you. Okay, on to item 12, which is the Dartford Community Safety Partnership Strategic Assessment 2020, the first one for the independent Dartford Community Safety Partnership. And it's at this time I'm going to ask that we resolve under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972 that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that the material involved was provided to the council on an in confidence basis. Is that so agreed, members? Just show me thumbs. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much if you were joining us live on YouTube or watching the stream. Thank you for joining us, but we're now going into closed session.